All right, I think we're good to go. So welcome everyone. My name is Kylie. Thank you so much for joining our Earthing 101 webinar today. Today we have Clint here, and we also have a special guest joining us, one of our team members, Jennifer. And many of you may already know Clint, but because today's webinar is geared toward those that are brand new to the concept of earthing, I'll start off by giving a bit of a background about Clint and his discovery. Clint Ober is the CEO of Earth Effects Incorporated, a research and development company located in Palm Springs, California. He first learned of grounding when installing cable TV systems in Billings, Montana in the early 1960s. A decade later, he formed Telecrafter Corporation and built it into the largest provider of cable installation services in the United States. This company specialized in proper grounding of cable installations for safety and TV signal stability. In the 1980s, he turned his attention to the developing computer industry and partnered with McGraw-Hill to distribute live digital news services via cable to PCs. This led to the development of the first cable modem and an increased awareness of the need for proper system grounding. Following a health challenge in 1995, he retired and embarked on a personal journey looking for a higher purpose in life. During his travels, he noticed people wearing plastic and rubber-soled shoes that insulate the body from earth. He wondered if no longer being naturally grounded could affect us. This question led to an experiment that suggested grounding alone reduced chronic pain and improved sleep. Thereafter, he developed a working hypothesis. Earth grounding the human body normalizes functioning of all body systems. Over the past 20 years, he has supported a host of research studies at institutions such as the University of Oregon, UC Irvine, UC San Diego, and the University of Arizona, Tucson. These efforts were led by Gaetan Chevalier, PhD, a visiting scholar in the Department of Family Medicine and Public Health.
Oh, sorry.
School of Medicine, UC San Diego. These studies have collectively demonstrated that grounding alone reduces inflammation and promotes normal functioning of all body systems. Now, Jennifer, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Morris, Vice President over here at Earthing. I've been with the company for about 14 years now. My team and I, we are monitoring all of your chats and Q&As, so we will be responding live to most of your questions. We'll try to get to all of them. We have there's about 4 of us over here working together. And I'll hop back on a little bit later, and we can ask Clint some of your most popular questions, some of the questions that are coming in most often. So please feel free to just hit the Q&A button or the chat button in your webinar menu there, and you'll get a direct link to our team. So Kylie, I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. Today we will begin by listening to Clint give us a brief explanation covering the basics of grounding. We hope this will help everyone gain a better understanding of grounding and why connecting our bodies to the earth is essential for health and well-being. Then we'll, like Jennifer said, we'll have her join us again, and we will begin the question and answer portion of the webinar. So Clint, if you're ready, feel free to go ahead and give us the explanation and explain a little bit more about what grounding is.
Okay. I assume that a lot of the people are new. Can I see these? I guess we've got some interference here from
Okay.
Are we back in action?
Yep.
Okay. Everybody settle down. Okay. So basically, I assume everybody, or not, or the majority, or at least a lot of the people that are on tonight are new to grounding, or have heard about grounding, or are even grounding and want to know more about it. And the main reason that people learn about grounding is somebody told them about it, or somebody shared earthing with them, or they watched the movie, and then they went outdoors and put their bare feet on the earth for a while and noticed that something was going on and they want to learn more. And so I really appreciate everybody that's here tonight giving of your time and to learn more about earthing, and hopefully be able to share enough with you that you can share it with your friends and family and help spread the word. So basically, it's always a challenge to try to explain electricity and grounding in short summary. But basically, to think about grounding, you have to first of all understand that the Earth itself has a natural energy, a natural surface charge. And everything electrical in the world is grounded to the Earth to prevent charge. And charge is an electrical imbalance, a disturbance, like in the television industry. If you are like on a cable, for instance, if you are not grounded, then you can have interference, electrical sparks or event, or the wind can create static electricity, and those charges will create flux and noise in the signals or in the data transmissions and so on. And so basically, so what grounding is about, it's about being connected to the Earth and your body being at the same electrical energy, or the electrical potential of the Earth. Your body's the same as the electrical potential of the Earth. And what this is about is preventing or eliminating the possibility of creating charge. We know, and I've spent 30 years in the communications industry where everything had to be grounded. Every home, every drop, the telephone cable, anything that went into a home has to be grounded prior to going into the home. And the reason is because if you don't, then static electricity or lightning and all these things can hit the cable lines or the telephone lines or the power lines. And if everything isn't grounded, it can go on into the home, and if it does, it'll blow up a TV set, or it'll create a fire, what it does. And so the number one thing you do is electrical stability and safety. So I retired from that industry about 30 years ago, and I had this strong working knowledge of grounding. Not many people in the electrical world know too much about grounding, other than you do it, but they don't know why. They don't understand all of the detail of it. And but anyhow, the main thing is I had a working knowledge, a 30-year working knowledge of communication systems, grounding.
Yeah.
And am I on, or is this other person on? I can't hear. Okay.
You're good to go, Clint. Sorry about that. There was
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So anyhow, I have a 30-year background, a working knowledge of earthing and grounding. And I retired from that industry when I was around 50 years old. And I went through a little bit of a health challenge. And when I recovered from that, I decided I never really wanted to go back to work, to chase the money and the power and all of the things that go with playing King of the Mountain with the other guys. But anyhow, so I left that industry, and I wanted to do something a little more interesting, a little more beneficial than just forever getting up and fighting the battle and making money. So I spent about 4 years traveling around the United States, and I, be a long story, ended up in Arizona. And there I didn't have a lot to do. I was kind of semi-retired. And so I spent a lot of time working with art galleries and stuff who had electrical, lots of electrical stuff. And anyhow, to make a short story of it, I started grounding a bunch of art galleries just because I was retired. I didn't have anything else to do. And I was in Sedona, Arizona, of all places. But anyhow, I started grounding these galleries and lighting up high-end art shows and so on and the like, just for fun. And I ended up, one day I was doing some work on my computer after, trying to do some ordering for one of the events, and the computer kept crashing. And this is back in 98, 97, 98. And back then the computers were not grounded. In fact, there wasn't too much to the computers, but anyhow, if the computers would forever crash, and then you'd have to restart them. And this would sometimes, if on certain dry days or windy days, there's a lot of static in the air, it was just a nightmare. So anyhow, I knew what the problem was, so I put a piece of copper tape across my desk and connected it to a ground. So anytime I would touch that tape or getting ready to use my computer, I would touch that tape, discharge any electrical static on my body, then I could go do my work and the computer was just fine. But it was on that particular day that afterwards I went outdoors and I was sitting on a bench and up pulled a big tour bus. It was across from Tlaquepaque down in Sedona, Arizona. And out came this whole crew of, on the tour. And it was a Japanese tour, and they were a little shorter in stature, but they were all wearing these white tennis shoes, athletic shoes. And it looked like they had gone to, one of the outlet malls and they were on sale and everybody bought them and put them on so they could wear them, on their trek around Sedona. But anyhow, in looking at that, just intuitively, I just asked myself, I wonder if there's any consequence to humans no longer being naturally grounded. At that time, I did not know. I had no idea. But I was 50 years old and maybe a little older than that. I'm not sure. I can't remember all that back that far. But anyhow, back then, so what I did is I went home and I grabbed a voltmeter and I started doing some testing to find out what happens to my body when I'm grounded versus when I'm not grounded. And sure enough, you can measure all of this environmental electrical noise and then all of the static electricity. But you have no ground. There's no ground. I mean, you're at zero, there's no ground. And so when the first thing I did to understand this a little bit better, I went back to a hardware store and bought a roll of 3-inch metal duct tape. And I taped it across my bed, connected it to a wire, threw it out the window, connected it to a ground rod, did the same thing with the meters, and it was grounded to the earth. So now I could hold the meter and measure the electrical charges on my body or the electrical state of my body. And then I could touch the grounded tape and it would go to zero. Then I knew I was at earth potential because I could not have any charge in my body or on my body when I'm grounded to the earth or when I'm at earth potential. So this is quite interesting. But that particular night that I was playing with this, I lay down on the bed and playing with, just measuring the voltage. The next thing I knew, I woke up in the morning and the meter was down beside myself and I had fallen asleep and didn't hardly move all night long. The significance of that was that I could hardly ever go to sleep without taking pain pills or Advil or something. Advil was my drug of choice at that time. And so anyhow, I fell asleep and I did that for a couple of more nights. And then I contacted a couple of friends of mine who had just friends, acquaintances, because when you're in a small town like Sedona, you have a couple of friends. But so I went out and I said, you guys ought to try this because everybody has sleep problems. And so I grounded them. And then one of the gentlemen, about 2 days later, he came over to me and he was holding his arm up and he says, do you think this could have any effect on arthritis? And I said, no, I don't think so. I think it just has to do by calming the nervous system and getting rid of the electrical noise that you're able to sleep better. But then about 15, 20 minutes later, I said, wait a minute. I normally have to take Advil. I'm in full pain when I go to sleep. I'm a 50-year-old. I worked all my life. I was raised on a ranch on a cowboy. I've got blown out knees from skiing for 30 years, from broken ankles from tennis. And at 50 years old, I felt like I had been run over by a truck. And I remember actually going out in the yard one night in Sedona when I was in a lot of pain, and I looked up at the sky and I said, God, why did you make my body with so much pain in it? But anyhow, the point was that all of a sudden I realized that my pain was starting to subside. And this gentleman was just in love with this grounding because his arthritis went away. The other guy, he was confused, but he was sleeping better. So anyhow, I started to poke around and try to find why grounding affected pain and improve sleep, and why we didn't know about it, or why I didn't know about it. Why didn't somebody even know about it? And so the first thing I did is I went to work on, I mean, tried to do some research on the internet, which wasn't a whole lot back then. You had AOL and a few things like that. And I could find nothing. And then, so I ended up going down to searching, poking through one of the medical libraries down at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Couldn't find anything except that when they operate on you, they have to ground your body to prevent static electricity from leaking in and creating a cardio event. So, this went on for a while, and a little bit frustrated with it because for sure it worked, because I started grounding other people and it worked on everybody, but there was no information whatsoever. It was kind of like one of those days in your life when you made a major discovery and it's really exciting. You've learned something and nobody else knows, and it's really important and whatever. But the next day, it's the worst day in your life because you realize that nobody knows about it. Nobody believes it. They all think you're nuts and so on. So, but anyhow, after a month or two, I decided to go out to UCLA in California and ask them to take a look at this and see if they could do a study or would do a study and measure, because it's undeniable. Anybody can do this and they experience the same thing. But anyhow, they looked at me and they said, listen, you expect us to believe that somebody's going to put a nail in the ground, tie a wire around it, and then tie a wire around somebody's toe and they're going to sleep better? They said, get out of here, you're nuts. And it turned into a bit of a joke, but what I learned there was that community did not understand anything about biologically electrical. And I knew everything about electrical, but I knew nothing about biology. And so there was a real communication gap there. But anyhow, they indicated, well, in order to do a study on this, it would cost probably $5 million, take 5 years. And even then, it's unlikely that it would ever get published. So I said, well, this is too important. Everybody's in pain, nobody can sleep. And I said, people need to know about this. So I ended up doing the first study myself had a couple of university students design this study and hired a nurse to help identify the subjects. And what we did is we went out and we made, a 12 by 24 inch conductive mat. And it's a ground plane to me, because in the communication industry, it's a ground plane. It's like Earth. I mean, it has the same electrical potential of Earth, so it's ground. And so anyhow, you put this in the bed. It's like taking 2.5 or 2 square feet of Earth and putting it in your bed and sleeping on it. But anyhow, so we did the study. There were 60 subjects, 30 of them not grounded with a placebo pad, and 30 of them actively grounded. And the results that came back were very simple. I mean, everybody slept better, everybody's pain went down, and then we had a list of a dozen different things that we didn't even ask about, but these were results that came out of the study. TMJ disappeared, PMS issues diminished significantly, if not completely. Just all kinds of issues that were being resolved. And we said, this is crazy. And one of the nurses looked at it and said, well, this can't be a cure-all. But I thought about it, and as time went on, I said, well, it could be a causal, because grounding, before 1960, we were all barefoot or wore leather-soled shoes. But if you were young, didn't have a lot of money, or as young kids, we were all barefoot. As soon as school was out, we would lose the shoes if we in fact wore shoes. A lot of times in my first few years of school, we didn't wear shoes at school. We could go to school barefoot. The majority of the kids were barefoot at school. But when the shoes started to come along, they were mostly leather, or they were all leather, some of the kids and so on, but they were leather, and they were expensive. And if it rained, you had to take them off and carry them, because if they get wet, it would destroy them and so on. But anyhow, so about 1960, we invented plastics. The first thing that happened when we invented the plastics, we put them on the soles of shoes. And this was really great, because now everybody in the world could wear shoes, inexpensive shoes. Leather was too expensive, But now we have simple, very inexpensive polymer-based shoes. And then Phil Knight up in Nike took the waffle iron, which many of you may have heard about, and took some of the early shoes, compressed them in his waffle iron so he could put some cleat or grip into the shoe for runners and athletes. And that was the thing that really took off. And over a period of 60 years, now probably 95% of all shoes are synthetic sole shoes, where 60 years ago, 95% of the shoes were, you were either barefoot or you're wearing a leather sole shoe. So there is a factor involved here that our environment changed during that period of time. So could this be causing all of these health issues? That was the question of the day at that time. And we didn't know, and we knew we had to do more research because everybody we talked to said, well, you got to do more research. Some of the guys said, well, you got to do a dozen studies or nobody's going to believe any of this. This is craziness. This is too simple. Nobody wants to put their name on it or associate with it because it's embarrassing. So that's why I'm here today. I was willing to put my name on it, and I did. So, but after that first study, the first thing we did is we started designing more studies. And I can't remember all of them in detail, but there were a few that were fairly significant. And I have to tell this one little story because this will hopefully help build a picture around this. But when we were doing the first study, we had 2 people one day that we were grounding that were subjects that had live pads. One of those persons was about an 85-year-old female who had severe arthritis in both hands. And back then, I was still of the opinion that it was the electrical noise in the environment that was causing all of these problems. But anyhow, in explaining the study to her and showing her what we were doing and then putting a patch on her so we could measure the body voltage, things like that, we were sitting there talking to her son who was helping. She leaned over to me and she said, well, this one's not working. And I said, I didn't understand what she was saying, but she said, but this hand over here was patched and grounded to the earth. This one was grounded to a meter. And so she said, this one's not working. And I didn't understand. She said, well, the pain's better here. So I immediately switched the patches. And about 5 minutes later, she says, now it's working. And that was when I first learned that, putting an electrode patch on the body would instantly reduce pain. And so anyhow, but I did all the electrical measurements, and this person had 20 volts of EMF. They had heating pads and lamps and everything you could possibly imagine in this bedroom. But she had severe arthritis and she was in her 80s. And I thought, well, this lady is going to really benefit from this experiment. And they were going to be grounded for, I think, 6 to 8 weeks. So then I went across town that afternoon and grounded a gentleman who was near 85, something like that. He had all kinds of cardiovascular issues. He had arthritis. He had everything wrong with him you can imagine. But it was age, And so I went in and grounded him. And when I got into his bedroom, there was no electrical noise whatsoever. There was only one lamp in the bedroom, and it was over by the doorway across the room from the bed. The bed, and this is an Adobe type house, like a cave, like an earth cave. And it had an earthen floor and in a bed with metal bed frame. And I said, this is horrible because here we're wasting a live pad on this guy and there's no electrical noise in his environment whatsoever. But I had no choice. I had to ground him because that's the luck of the draw. So I didn't think too much about it other than the lady was going to have a great experience and the guy, unfortunately, wasn't going to get much benefit out of it because there was no environmental electric fields and so on. So anyhow, about 6 to 8 weeks later, when they were analyzing the study, I went in and looked, at some of the paperwork, and I saw these two people side by side, and they both had the same results. Both had significantly improved arthritis. They had significantly improved sleep, significantly improved, vitality, energy, all of the things that go with, this age group. And I said, well, there's something wrong here but then they were both live pads. It couldn't be. So I said, what did I miss? So I went back and I looked, and then I realized after I did a few tests, I said, the electric fields are not the active agent here. Reducing electric fields is not reducing this inflammation. It is not reducing the effects that we're seeing. The only thing, because both people experienced the same thing, one had 0 and the other had an extremely high amount. And so the only conclusion I could come to was that it was the surface charge of the earth itself, the electrical potential of the earth, the electrical energy of the earth. When you are grounded, you can't have charge on your body, that's for sure. That's what we were doing. But it wasn't the reduction of noise, it was the body being at earth potential. And like in the electrical industry, you cannot have charge in a grounded body. I didn't know too much about inflammation. Nobody did at that time. But anyhow, so after that, I started to re-gear our studies a little differently. And then we were looking at the effects that being connected to the earth itself was the active agent, or the causing the results. So, and again, I go back to this causal thing. It's not a cure-all, but could this be the cause of all of these health disorders? Because in this study group, we had covered about everything. So anyhow, then we went on and we did a host of other studies, but the most important study that we did, and before that, I was down in San Diego and at a medical conference, and there was a gentleman, Dr. Steven Sinatra was there, and we had been doing some work, study in San Diego, where we were measuring heart rate variability, and that's the vitality of your heart, and we were measuring cortisol, various things like that. But anyhow, we wanted to meet with Steven because nobody knew what heart rate variability was except for a few cardiologists, and he was a well-known cardiologist. And so I sat down and was talking to Steven, and I said, what we're doing is when we ground somebody, and further, a cardiologist knows the body's electrical. A lot of doctors don't. You have a vitamin deficiency or a nutrition deficiency or a pharmaceutical deficiency or whatever, all these things. But anyhow, cardiologists, everything is electrical. Your heart's electrical, your nerves electrical. Everything in your body is electrical first, chemical second. So I was telling Steve, I said, what we're doing, as soon as we ground people, then the pain resolves. And he said, well, and we've been trying to do research on pain, but when you go to the medical literature, when you look at cause of pain, they always say cause unknown, cause of MS, cause unknown, cause of lupus, cause of cancer, cause of anything in the medical industry. The cause is cause unknown. They do not know what causes these health disorders. And that was really dumbfounding to somebody who had spent 30 years in the communications industry, that all these people, why didn't they know these things? And but anyhow, so Stephen leaned over and he looked at me. He says, Clint, he says, you shouldn't be focused on pain. He says, pain is a byproduct of inflammation. You cannot have pain in your body unless you have inflammation. So if your body is in pain, it's a fire. It's the body, the word inflammation means inflame. The body is inflamed. Then I went back to my electrical communications, grounding and all that. That's what we were doing. We were trying to prevent fire, to prevent stress that could, and that's what grounding is about. And so all of a sudden, everything started to make sense. And then in 2004, there is I don't know if we have a slide on this, but in 2004, Time magazine came out with an article with the boys at Boston, Mass, Ripker and those groups, and they said that you don't have, you know, you don't have heart disease, you don't have lupus, MS, cancer, you don't have any of these diseases. What you have is chronic inflammation, meaning your immune system is, your body's on fire and your immune system is compromised because it's spending all of its energy trying to put out the fire. But all of these diseases that you have they're all based, the foundation is inflammation. And they will manifest differently in different people based on your genetics, based on your environment, your you know, all of the other things that you do that contribute to poor health. But anyhow, so this was kind of a very interesting at that time. Then everybody started running around getting CRP tests, and blueberries became very popular and so on. But anyhow, William Meggs is an MD who wrote a book called The Inflammation Cure, which nobody really knew at the time. But he said that inflammation may turn out to be the elusive holy grail of medicine, the single phenomena that stands between sickness and health. You have to know, because inflammation is what underlies all of the sickness. And if you want to have health, you have to prevent inflammation. But anyhow, so the whole point of it is, being wrong, we have this slide up here on the studies that this is back in 2000 when we were working on this. Everybody was studying these modern health disorders, which were all, we know now, inflammation related, but many of them didn't know. It was dysfunction of the immune system. The immune system, everybody's immune system was cratering. And so, but anyhow, over the years, it's like in 2012, I think it's the last year on here, they did 30,000 studies on inflammation-related health disorders. They were looking for ways to treat inflammation-related health disorders. On these charts here, it's over 100,000 studies that have been produced. You would think with all of that energy, all of that effort, all of that talent, and all of the knowledge that these people had, they would have been able to come up and understand what the cause of inflammation was. Problem is, they're not looking for the cause. They're looking for ways to treat it. And the only known way to treat it now, which many people know, is steroids, like lupus, MS, and all of those issues. But anyhow, steroids have a horrible side effect, and especially for lupus, people will put on 50 pounds in just a short period of time. But anyhow, going back to the inflammation, here's a list, a list of a few of inflammation-related health disorders. Lupus, MS, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, autism, all these things. There's a list of about 85 known classified autoimmune disorders, meaning your immune system is compromised, and as a result, you're experiencing this health disorder. So we can remove the slide so I can, but anyhow, so the point was, inflammation was this new word that everybody had to get their mind around. And here's a cardiologist on, forget about pain, because pain is nothing more than a messenger. So anybody listening tonight, if you have pain in your body, pain is what we find out what pain is. It's a messenger to your brain. Your body's on fire. I'm saying, get me out of here, put the fire out, change whatever's going on, and get me back to normal. That's what pain is. Pain is not something you take Advil for. I mean, you can take the Advil to calm down, but the message is what's, So anyhow, earthing and grounding is about the science. We've done about 24 peer-reviewed studies that have been published, and you can find lots about earthing on PubMed. You go to Google, you can type in almost any health disorder and earthing and grounding, and you'll get something. And so we've been working on this for over 22 years. And the main thing is trying to find a way to teach people about grounding and finding ways to bring this into people's lives. And a lot of the products that have shown up that we've come up with as far as earthing is most of these products were accidental, if not all. Basically, when we were doing our studies, we had to make ground planes. And because you have to patch people to measure the biological effects, or what happens, they have to sleep for a few weeks or months, or they sit in a chair or whatever. So we had to measure the difference of being grounded and not grounded. And, and so the number one thing that we focused on was, if you take any person who has inflammation, who has arthritis, MS, lupus, any of these chronic health disorders, degenerative health disorders, and you ground them, some of them for just 15 minutes, you automatically put the fire out. The body becomes earth, grounded at earth potential, and you can't have charge in a grounded body. So it's really that simple. The real question was, what is causing, and this is what we spent several years working on, was we knew that it worked, but we didn't know why. Nobody knew why. We knew that we grounded the body, that the pain went away, but nobody knew exactly what the mechanism of action was. So this took us quite a while. The first thing we did is we had to look at the blood, because the number one thing that happens when you ground a person is their complexion changes, their color changes, their demeanor changes. So that indicates improved circulation. And so we drew blood and we looked at the blood before being grounded and after being grounded. Anybody wearing shoes, living in a modern home or living in a modern work environment, if you draw their blood, you'll see that their blood is what they call thick and sticky, or like Dr. Sinatra calls more like ketchup. I mean, and that's why so many people are on blood thinners. And as soon as you ground for like 15, 30 minutes, then your blood becomes thin and like red wine, or like, you know, just so it can get in and out of the capillaries easy. When it's thick, it can't get into the capillaries and oxygenate the tissue. And so anyhow, the first thing we noticed was improved circulation. Then we noticed that you ground, and then we started doing some thermal imaging, so we could take a person who had arthritis in a knee or pain or chronic pain, and we could take pictures of them before and take pictures of them 30 minutes later. The pain was, the inflammation was totally gone. And so the issue of, so the research has been fun on this, and there's a lot of research. You can go to the Earthing Institute and find anything you want. You can ask any question and they'll give you answers along with the crew that's with us here tonight. And but the main thing is, after in doing all these studies, the number one thing that we said to ourselves as we were kind of unwinding some of the research was, what is the number one thing we can do for people that will help them learn about it, experience it, and benefit from grounding? And we determined that the best thing to do is to ground people during sleep, because you put it in your bed, on your bed, grounded. You come home at night, all you have to do is lay down and go to sleep. You don't have to think about it. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to mess with it. You don't need to look at a schedule, nothing. All you do every night, you come home, you lay down and go to sleep. There is no work, but the results are, you know, profound. So anyhow, that's where we started, and that's where our focus has been. But since then, we've been trying to develop a host of other products. We have you know, the new mattress covers. We have all kinds of, I mean, you know, I work on lots of other things in the background. We're trying to bring a new line of earthing mattresses, because everybody's going to buy a mattress. You might as well buy one that's grounded, because again, you don't have to do anything. Just put it in your bedroom, plug it in, and go to sleep. So things like that. The bigger problem, especially for a lot of people, is, you know, the shoes, because people are ungrounded. They can't go barefoot. And so we are forever putting together, you know, doing research and developing, you know, conductive flip-flops. We're starting there because we want them to be inexpensive and affordable to everybody. But most of all, we want them to work, and we're not concerned about styles. We're concerned about teaching people and helping people understand the effectiveness of ground. So I could go on, but I know we have a lot of questions,
Right.
and we do need to get to them.
Okay.
And so, but I just want to throw out a couple of simpler things. You know, everybody, what I'm sharing with you tonight is just a tip of the iceberg. To understand grounding a little bit, you need to, it's for instance, it's like everybody has pets. And that's another thing we're bringing out a line of pet beds that are completely grounded so that the animals don't have to suffer. But anyhow, animals who live in the wild, the cats, the dogs, the wolves, the coyotes, the deer, these animals cancer does not exist in the wild. Animals who live indoors with their owners experience cancer at the same rate that the owners do, which is about 50%. Lupus, MS, a lot of these modern autoimmune diseases, the indoor animals experience them. The outdoor animals do not experience them. So, and the reason is because they're naturally grounded all the time. They walk grounded, sleep grounded, you know, everything is grounded. They can't have charge in their body. They can't have fire in their body. So anyhow, that's a simple metaphor to kind of make this a little more simple. And beyond that, you have to experience it. And the easiest way to experience is run outdoors, put your feet on the ground for 30 minutes and notice the change in your pain and the color and your demeanor and how your circulation improves and how and so on and so on. So anyhow, I'm going to give up here. Let's get on to the questions.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you for the explanation. I think that was extremely helpful. We're going to check in with Jennifer now. She's been helping monitor the live Q&A. Welcome back, Jennifer. And actually,
Hello again.
Speaking of indoor animals, my cat is demanding to go out. So just 1 second. I don't know. I know she's meowing, so I'm sorry if you can hear that in the background.
Thanks, Clint, for all that information. I've been monitoring the questions coming in here on the Q&A section. And one of the main questions that we're getting a lot of, we're seeing, you talk about the patches. And can you, first of all, explain what is a patch? And one of the main questions as it relates to the patch is, can you explain why they're so effective? You know, we always want to have as much, we always want to be as grounded as much as possible. So why are the patches so much more effective, you know, in treating that fire and putting that acute fire down, as opposed to our other mats, you know, the bed mats, that sort of thing?
Okay. I happen to have one right here in my hand, but that's all right. Basically, what happens with the patch, this is an electrode patch. It's, for instance, you know, like they measure EKGs and so on. The reason they use an electrode patch is because they can pick up the readings, the electrical frequencies from your heart, and so on. And the reason is because the skin has, you know, resistance, lots of resistance. And so when we put a patch, it's kind of like opening the skin and just pouring electrons into the body. So you're removing all the resistance between the surface of the skin and the issue where the inflammation is. So how do I say that? I guess it's like pouring water on a fire. I mean, the patch, the wire is connected to the earth. The earth is charged with free electrons, and so the electrons are going to flow up the wire, and your body's not at earth potential, so it's going to pull electrons into the body rapidly until it equalizes with the earth. And if you do it through the patch, through the area of inflammation, let's say more like acute inflammation. For instance, let me try to explain it better even. For instance, if you have surgery, or if you have you know, an injury, or have a tooth pulled, you know, they'll give you Vicodin because of the extreme hot burning pain. I guarantee you that if you put a patch on the side of your jaw after you have a tooth pulled, you do not experience the hot burning pain. There are two kinds of pain. One is oxidative pain. That's where the neutrophils are oxidizing healthy tissue and creating the inflammation, creating the fire. That's oxidative pain. That's hot burning pain. The other pain, the subtle pain, that will remain. And it says, leave me alone, let me heal. But it doesn't debilitate you. Like, so you don't have to take the strong meds. And this is true with, it's like animals, they get hurt. You don't have to push Vicodin, or I shouldn't use the name Vicodin, but pain meds into the body. They just go out and dig a little, paw the ground a little bit, put their belly on the ground and stay there until they recover. But they don't go sitting there whining and howling and call the ambulance and whatever and so on and so on. But anyhow, so the point is, when you put a patch on, the first thing you're doing is it's like you're opening a path for electrons to pour in the body, flood that area where this fire is, where the inflammation is, put out the fire, and then the immune system everything can return to normal. And then you'll have a 70% less healing time. And we know this from the athletes in the Tour de France and all the athletes that we've grounded over the years. The only reason they put up with all of this was because of recovery. They needed to recover, they needed to stay in the game. And they knew by wearing the patches or sleeping grounded, they could get up in the morning and be back in the game. Or if they didn't, they would be, delayed onset muscle soreness, they couldn't move and so on and so on. But anyhow, so the patch is the most important accidental discovery that I made with this 85-year-old lady with severe arthritis. If you can take somebody that's got hot burning arthritis and red and flaring and put a patch on them, and in just 5-10 minutes, the pain is gone and the inflammation is cooling down. I mean, it's remarkable because there is no drug that can do that. There is nothing. You can't eat enough blueberries. You can't eat anything that's going to do that. So it's nature. This is not, earthing and grounding is a phenomena of nature. It's like breathing oxygen. This is all part of our systemically who we are. We have to be grounded in order for the immune system to remain stable. Otherwise, the immune system starts flaring and creates cytokine storms or creates these flaring arthritis, COPD, all these things. You can take somebody with COPD, put a patch here, sit them down for 5 minutes, they can breathe. Their color comes back. That's not supposed to happen. But anyhow, so the patch is a 911 of earthing. If you've got a fire, you stub your toe, you hurt yourself, you cut yourself, you damage yourself, put a patch on it, and you're going to experience a miracle. It's not my miracle. It's the earth. It's who we are. It's nature. We didn't have to think about this throughout all history. We didn't have inflammation throughout all history. This is a modern thing that came along in the last 60 years. Now we have to put ourselves back in nature, so with a negative ground, so that we don't have this fire, so the immune system can go back to protecting and preventing health disorder.
And now, what about putting the patches on specific parts of your body as it relates to like the K1 meridians, those types of things?
Yeah. In our studies, we generally would put the patches on the bottom of the feet on K1. That's because that's one of the main meridians and energy travels through that. And, but also that was Gaetan, the scientist. For me, it's cowboy logic. People stand barefoot on the earth. So patch them where they would most naturally be grounded. And that's on the bottom of the feet or on the palms of the hands, because people throughout time, I mean, they're either touching the earth or touching live things that are grounded. And so these are our ground paws, our feet and our hands. And so, but anyhow, so when I'm demonstrating earthing to groups of people or small groups of people, and oftentimes we will have, like a dozen grounded chairs and we put people in them. We put patches on the feet. And, you know, they have aches and pains in the shoulder. They have this going on. They have that going on and whatever. But I always patch them on the feet because hygiene. And I don't want to get into the personal, you know, areas and so on. But anyhow, so I tell them, just don't worry about where the pain is. It may take a little longer to get there, but because it has to clean up a bunch of other things along the way. But by grounding the bottom of the feet, I have seen miracles in less than 30 minutes in 99% of the people I've grounded. They can breathe easier, their circulation improves, their color improves, the pain level goes down, the stress level goes down. It's just a miracle. Oftentimes I would take people outdoors and just set them on the grass and put it, you know, no matter how angry they are, no matter how much anxiety and irritability and depression and stress they have, and how much anger they have in their, just take them outdoors, set them on the earth for 30 minutes, put their bare feet and bare hands, and they're laughing and smiling. You can't be angry and unhappy and all wound up when you're sitting in the barefoot in the grass. I mean, it's.
On that note, can you kind of explain what kind of surfaces outside are naturally, you know, are you naturally grounded? It's not just grass. I think people just think grass is the only way, but can you talk about all the other places?
Grass is the good way, because if there's good, healthy grass going there, then you're going to get good, healthy ground. On the other hand, just pure earth. I mean, if you don't have grass, then you can just sprinkle a little water and dampen it down so it's not dusty and all that. And then just create your own little sandbox or your own little earthing patch and take a chair and go out and just sit with your feet in the earth. But beyond that, concrete, generally, if it's laying on the earth, it's grounded. If you're in a 30-story high-rise and it's a steel concrete building, it's grounded all the way to the top because of the concrete holds moisture and the steel rebar is an electrical conductor. So concrete is generally grounded. If it's painted, it's like putting shoes on. You lost your ground as soon as you paint it. If you're in a home, you have a concrete floor, you generally have tile on it that's glass. That's not conductive. You have carpet and all these things, they are not conductive. If you do decide one day to rip your carpet up, take it out and polish the concrete so it's and stain it so it's pretty, make sure you put a water-based sealer on it, because then it will always be conductive and it'll look beautiful. But that's as far as grounding goes. Other than that, you can take, if you live in an older home that has cast iron type drains and copper plumbing, then take a bath. You know, the water's grounded coming into the tub, and the drain is probably grounded, so you have a connection to cast iron. If it's modern home plastic, it's not conductive. So go to the beach, go for a walk barefoot. We're trying to get these grounded shoes so that you can go wear flip-flops, so you don't have to, you know, walk in some of the challenging areas. Did I answer that?
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of times people will say, you know, I've been grounding for a month, I've been grounding, you know, for 2 weeks, and I think I noticed something, but my back is still hurting. I still have some lower back pain, although I do sleep better. How would you encourage people to kind of be patient? What have you noticed? I guess what I'm asking is, what are the long-term things that most people notice when they ground for a long period of time, years?
Okay, well, let's take a little different approach on that first. Yeah, I spent a lot of time grounding women with MS and lupus. The reason is because the rheumatologist says, here, you can have them, I can't help them. And it's true, they can't help them. All they can do is give them steroids. But anyhow, I started grounding this one woman who had severe MS. put a patch on, and she got significant benefits. And we grounded her bed, and she got significant. But she stopped using the patch because of the wire, and she had to do these things. And she'd get up in the morning, and she would feel great. But by 10 o'clock, the pain would start coming up, the energy would start coming down, and the MS would start to, you could see the MS in her arms and hands. So then I said, well, let's do more grounding. Let's get you more grounded longer throughout the day. So then I made up a thing that she could put in her chair when she was watching TV so she could sit. She was grounded. So we got an extra few hours of grounding that way. And it came back, and all of a sudden, she started making more progress, but she still, at certain times of the day, would have the fatigue would flare. The fatigue would come up, the MS would flare, and so on and so on. And so then finally, I figured out ways that I could keep her grounded 16 hours a day rather than just 8 or 10 or 12. And then we started making huge progress. And within weeks, she had a miraculous, she was able to drive again. She was able to go see her mother. She was in Ojai, California. She could drive all the way to Santa Barbara, do all these things that she hadn't driven for almost 3 years. And so that's how dramatic it is. And the same with lupus. Lupus is a flaring disease. It's when the flares show up, you have to ground them, and they have to stay grounded 24/7 until their system calms down and everything gets back to normal. The immune system calms down. Otherwise, they have to go on steroids and load up like put on 50 pounds. So anyhow, what I'm trying to say here is, if your health is compromised and you have lots of health issues, you have cardiovascular issues, you have arthritis, you have hypertension, you have all of these things, any one of these things, and the older you are, and the more you are experiencing compromised health, the more compromised your immune system is. So as long as your immune system is compromised, you can put the fire out by grounding out in the backyard for 30 minutes. You can actually go hug a tree. It's going to help for a few minutes. You can drink a glass of water. It's going to help. You can eat a bag of blueberries. It's going to help. But in order for you to, you have to remember, like the animals in the wild don't experience any of these health disorders because they're grounded 24/7. Humans, throughout most of time, have been grounded for 24/7. We slept in caves. We walked on the earth. We lived off the earth daily, touching the earth. That was our home. And it's only been the last 100 years that we started building homes with floors, and only 60 some years since everybody was starting to wear shoes. We have made huge progress. What we've done, you look at the internet, you look at all the modern things that have happened just in the last 20 years. Well, go backward, fast forward backwards. And, we're not too far removed from living in nature. And the more we remove ourselves from nature, the more these autoimmune related health disorders. We have a chart somewhere that actually shows the path. The exponential growth of these autoimmune health disorders. And they all correlate with the loss of our ground by wearing shoes and carpeting the homes. TV came in the late 50s for everybody. Yeah, here's the path right here. The orange that's the growth of athletic or rubber sole, synthetic sole shoes. And this is from the shoe industry. The red line is the most tracked autoimmune disease over the last 60, 70 years is diabetes. Diabetes is an inflammation-related health disorder. It's an autoimmune disease. It's not a sugar disease. Sugar will complicate it and exacerbate it. Lifestyles will certainly contribute, but the underlying cause of diabetes is inflammation. So, but it parallels this curve exactly. Then you can add autism, lupus, MS, all of these other health disorders, and they're all on the same curve. Unfortunately, we don't have records. autism is fairly new. I mean, 1 in 10,000, just 20 some years ago. Now it's 1 in 50. But these kids have never touched the earth. It's just, so anyhow, I lost my direction there. Bring me back home.
I think that's good. Let me ask you, as we're talking about ways of grounding, when you purchase our products, you get a safety adapter that can plug into the outlet, but we also offer a ground rod so that you can literally plug directly into the earth and not use the ground port of your outlet. A lot of people ask if there's a difference. Is there any reason that you should use one over the other? Are they the same? What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, I want to finish that last question first. Just leave everything there.
Okay.
You want to know how long to ground, or some people aren't getting the results that they would like or expect. What they need to do is, if you have pain in your body, you need to get grounded, and you need to stay grounded until your health returns to normal. If you need to take 4 hours off and go fight the bear or do whatever, or 8 hours, you have to do that. Maybe you can ground yourself at work also. But the answer to that question is the reason is you're not getting enough ground. You need to get grounded and stay grounded until your immune system, the fire is out, your immune system returns to normal, so it can maintain health. Health is the body's most natural state. You don't have to do anything about it except not let things interfere with your immune system. Your immune system is the number one thing. It's the number one. If you have a strong immune system, you have health. If your immune system is compromised because of whatever, in this case, we know it's ground, then your health is compromised. The immune system is compromised, your health is going to be compromised, and it's going to be a pretty tough life. So I just wanted to answer that. Stay grounded until the pain stops and goes away. And you can figure this out real easy. Just go do it. Now let's go to the ground rod. A lot of people have, especially the EMF communities and all these other people are concerned about using electrical grounds. Electrical ground in your home is not connected to your electrical system. It is connected to, it's in every outlet. And there's wires running in your walls, and they are all connected to a ground bar and to a ground rod driven into the earth. Most of those ground rods go 8 to 12 feet deep into the earth. And so there's a lot of unknown. I mean, not in our minds. We know that grounding is safe. That's what grounding is all about. It's a safety. To prevent fire, to maintain electrical stability of the entire electrical system and all of the appliances and everything that are connected to it. But anyhow, so we have a ground rod. The reason we have a ground rod is because in the early days, we needed to do more work to test out the electrical ground systems to make sure they were safe. And we did. And we put 100 ohm resistors in all ground cords to prevent an electrical event. I mean, to explain what that means is electricity is it's like the easiest way is take a water hose out beside your house, turn the spigot on wide open and open the nozzle on the hose wide open, and you can shoot water all the way across the yard. On the other hand, if you want to, and let's say you want to fill a 5-gallon bucket, so you can fill a 5-gallon bucket rather fast with an open spigot. Now, if you start turning the spigot down, you're creating resistance. And so now the water slows down, and eventually it slows down to a trickle. The key to it is the bucket's going to get full one way or the other. It's going to get full real fast, or it's going to fill up slow. So by slowing down, by putting a resistor in line, what it does is it slows down any electrical event that could occur from coming. It's really more for static electricity. But anyhow, the point is you can't be electrocuted by grounding yourself to an electrical ground, because in that cord there is a resistor molded into the snap area. So now the ground rod, why do we use ground rods? We came up with them for a temporary, basically during our experiments, we wanted a clean system, just pure earth, pure, without any noise around, any electrical noise or anything. And, but there's a reason that ground rod's only 11 inches. The house ground is 8 to 12 feet in the ground. It is a rock solid, permanent ground. It is a safe ground. If you put a ground rod in the earth over 11 inches, you have to call the city and have them come out, mark all the power lines, the water lines, the telephone lines, the cable lines, so you don't put the ground rod through a telephone line or a cable line or a power line. That's why we have that short ground rod, but it's really a testing device for our studies. But on the other hand, a lot of people say, well, I just want pure earth. Well, here it is. Do whatever you want. The problem with ground rods, the little temporary ground rods, is the gardener's going to come, he's going to pull it up, put it on the ledge, and mow the yard, and most of the time he's not going to put it back in because he forgets about it. He's not used to it. The other thing is if the soil dries out, then you're not going to get good ground with the little ground rod. You can only use a ground rod where live plants are growing and healthy, or a tree or a plant, but the soil contains enough water that it can maintain the health of the vegetation, the near vegetation. So I use both depending on what I'm doing. If I'm doing experiments, I'll use the short ground rod sometimes. But generally, I sleep on the electrical ground. I have for, I would say, the last 15 years. And I'm 76 years old. I don't have any arthritis. I don't have any lupus, MS, any autoimmune disease. I'm getting a little more cantankerous and a little more challenging to put up with, some of the things.
No.
But anyhow, so no, I go to a cardiologist every 6 months. They check my blood. They check all my markers and stuff, but I don't have chronic pain. I don't have inflammation. So anyhow, and I can walk 5 miles without even thinking about it. In my grounded flip-flops.
Which we're all very excited about. We all can't wait to bring that to everyone.
My prototype sample flip-flops. And I've been doing this, working on these shoes for 2 years. I mean, it's as simple as, it's really simple, but it's not. Because you have carbon and it has to hold its conductive integrity, and you have to be foam so it's comfortable for people. So, but anyhow, we're getting closer and closer. Yes.
Yes, we are. Very exciting. So let me go back to, we were talking about the patches and, sleeping at night, that kind of thing, or sleeping grounded at night. We get a lot of questions. How much does it affect you with the surface area of using the product? So, the mat, the large mat versus the smaller mat, clothes, no clothes, how much is the surface area of the body touching the earth or touching, a grounded product? How much of an effect does that have?
Okay. Well, I can tell you that, just the simple patch is life-changing in just a matter of minutes or hours, depending on what's going on. If you have an incision, it takes time to heal, so you have to wear the patch for sometimes a couple of days, in order to keep that fire down. But anyhow, to answer your question, the sleep mat you're dealing with two things. One, if people have to do something or comply with something after 3 or 4 days, they're gone. The patches, nobody's going to use the patches, much more than a few days, or events at a time. You stub your toe, you're going to put a patch on it. You cut yourself, you're going to put a patch on it. So what we tried to do, we made cotton sheets with silver for years. We tried to improve them constantly. Some of them were better than others, but some of the people went out of business on the types of yarns we were using sometimes. But anyhow, they were effective, but oftentimes within just a few months, they would lose their conductivity because the body salts, and the perspiration would oxidize and destroy the silver. And that's challenging for the customer who doesn't know that it's not working, expects it to be working, paid money for it, versus us who get returns and all these issues that were going on. It just wasn't a profitable way to do business or an effective way for a customer. Because if your customer's not getting the benefits we're talking about, then we're dead in the water. So our goal has always been is to produce products which you can get the benefits. So to answer your question, I would say there's 500,000 people out there sleeping on a unimat, a 12 by 30-inch unimat, and that's a financial issue. But also, they sleep directly on it. They bought the silver sheets, and the sheets went bad, but oftentimes we gave them a unimat along with it, and so the unimat always worked. So they kept sleeping on the unimat. So that has been an extremely popular. There's probably 1 million. I don't know how many there are out there.
And this is our black universal mat.
Yes.
That you're speaking of.
So that mat works. So people lay on it. They usually have their skin against it. They are hard grounded, like putting a big patch on. And so, and then lots of times we put them in little sleeves so that in the winter when it was a little cooler, because carbon will stay at room temperature. And so they are a little cooler to sleep on. And that gets to another issue. People, make sure you ask me that about the blankets. Okay. But anyhow, so as time went on, we decided that the best thing for us to do is to develop a carbon conductive mat, because carbon is more conductive than silver or copper. And with the carbon mats that we have, they are 100% conductive, where the silver mats are only 5% conductive. So by going to a 100% conductive ground plane or mat, now you can put it on the bed and you can put a sheet on top of it and lay on it, and then your body will, within minutes or seconds, hydrate the sheet sufficient with body perspiration. You have the humidity in the air, you have the body perspiration, you have the body salts, and so you're grounded immediately within seconds of laying down. So this was the best product that we could come up with that was affordable, and it was, it's a personal grounding mat. I mean, if the other person in the home didn't want to be grounded, no problem. Just put this on your side of the bed and take care of yourself. And so this is the best product that we have created to date. We have since expanded those to full-size mattress covers, and they are. I want to go back up here for a little bit. In the communications industry, if there was noise on the line or if there was anything going on, the common word was more ground. Put up more copper. Put copper on the walls. Do whatever you do. Ground everything, more ground to reduce noise. So the more ground, the better. The more ground, the more effective. Because ground is not just a flow of electrons. The Earth has its own electric field. Every living thing on the planet, every rock, everything on the planet has an energy field. And this energy radiates from the surface of the Earth. And it's really measurable quite well up to 6 feet above the Earth. And so when you put that pad on the bed in a home, the electrical interference in the home, you will reduce it 10 feet away without any contact. I mean, you will reduce these environmental noise, electrical noises, just by plugging the pad in. When you put an electrical pad on, or a ground pad on in your bedroom, especially one of the large ones, you walk in, that room is quieter, it feels cooler and calmer because it's pushing away the environmental electric fields, because the Earth is infinitely large. And when you're connected to it, then that energy, that power is huge. So there's other benefits here. But so to answer your question, I got to get back to answering the question. To me, any amount of grounding is good. Any size grounding is good. Bigger is better, without question. More is better because it's a bigger energy field. You have more freedom to move around. You don't have an arm hanging out here in the free space.
And there's no such thing as too much, right?
Well, that's one of the most common questions that people have asked me. And I said, well, if you look at the animals who live in the wild, I don't see any of them dying from living, from being grounded. I've never, that you can't get too much. You can't get enough ground is the issue of the day. That is the problem, is getting enough ground. Grounding it's about your immune system, maintaining your immune system electrically stable. You need to be grounded at all times because your immune system is working 24/7. Every breath of air you take, you're breathing pathogens and all the things that come in the air. Your body, your metabolic processes are producing all kinds of inflammation all by itself. Just by, just the metabolism. And all this needs to be cleaned up. Your immune system, which are your white blood cells, they're busy going about cleaning all this up, keeping it organized and keeping you healthy. And they're doing it without you telling it to do it. All you have to do is keep the interference away so they can do their work. And then you will have health. You can't have anything but health if you remove the stress that's impacting your immune system. In this case, we know it's not being grounded. Did I go on? I'm sorry, I'll go back to.
That was perfect.
It's excellent. You're giving us tons of great information. You're answering a lot of other questions I'm seeing popping up here. One question you mentioned, and I'm reminding you now because we do get this question a lot, especially with our new Black Elite line products. People are saying, I tend to sleep hot. I slept on it one night and I felt warm and I felt hot. Can you speak about why someone might feel that?
Yes, we have one slide that shows the hands before grounding and after grounding, the blood flow in the hands. If we can bring it up.
We're getting it up.
Okay, so basically what happens, these images on the top are a woman who has cold fingers and cold toes. And she was sitting on a couch and telling me about all the problems that she has to have socks on. She couldn't sleep on the grounded mattress or the grounding sheet because she had to have gloves on her hands and socks on her feet so she didn't get cold at night. And I said, here, I want you to do me a favor. I said, just give me one of your hands. I mean, your toes are freezing right now, right? And she says, yes. And I said, I need to take your socks off, all of this. And I said, I'm just going to put a patch in the palm of your hand. And then in 30 minutes, I want you to tell me, or as soon as your toes warm up, I want you to tell me. And she looked at me and says, are you nuts? And whatever. So anyhow, we carried on a conversation with some other people there. And sure enough, within 5-10 minutes, she says, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm not cold. My toes are warm. My fingers are warm. So basically what's going on here when you get grounded? When you're not grounded, your blood is thick and sticky and you have inflammation in your body. You have chaos in your body. And so, but you don't, your circulation is challenged. So here, when you look at this therm, the area where the fingers are not showing, that means your fingers are at room temperature or below. They're cold. The blood is not getting in there and circulating and oxygenating the tissue. So they're both the same picture. One's just closer up than the other. But as soon as you get grounded for like 15-30 minutes, all of a sudden the blood thins out. Now it's like red wine, like in nature. Now it gets in there and it oxygenating the tissue, cleaning up the inflammation, but now it's capable of regulating its temperature. The body regulates its own temperature. It tries to keep you at 90, 96.8 degrees, whatever. So anyhow, we hear this comment so many times. I just can't sleep with this thing because I sweat, I do this, I do whatever. I said, well, did your pain go away? Did you sleep better? Yes, but I can't sleep with it because whatever. I said, well, here's your issue. You need to start removing covers. You have too many covers on your bed. In the summer, I sleep with just a single sheet. In the winter, I put 2 or 3 sheets together and sleep with them. That's all I use for covers because I'm well grounded. But anyhow, so grounding is the heat that you're experiencing is not from the grounding heating up your body. What it's doing is it's normalizing your blood viscosity, the thickness of your blood, so that your body can regulate its own temperature and clean up the inflammation and all of those things. There may be a little excess heat from cleaning up the inflammation. I'm not sure, but I know that generally it's just people have too many covers, and they have. Maybe other people can speak to this also, but that's my experience over 22 years. This is something that I hear constantly. Take the covers off. Get grounded. Take the covers off. Sleep comfortably. You want sheets or something light. You get rid of the polyester and the static electricity type blankets. Go to cotton. Go to things that breathe, and you'll be fine.
How about people who are dealing with heart issues? We get a lot of questions from heart patients who maybe have high blood pressure. They might be on blood thinners. They might have stents, pacemakers. How can you speak to grounding as it relates to heart health?
Well, blood pressure is an interesting thing. I occasionally have issues with it, but blood pressure is not from what you think. Blood pressure is the word pressure, meaning there's pressure on your body, you're stressed, you're not dealing with things like you should, or you're not going for your daily walk, or you're not taking your vacations, you have financial stress, family stress, political stress, craziness going on around you. It's enough to raise anybody's blood pressure, because what it is, it's putting pressure on the system. So when you get grounded, like I said earlier, that if you go out and sit in the yard barefoot with your hands on the grass for 30, 40 minutes, you're going to release that stress and tension in your body. It's like the study they did with the babies. As soon as the premature babies, as soon as they grounded them, it normalized their vagal tone. The vagal tone is your sympathetic, parasympathetic, and it's regulated by your heart. I mean, if you're calm and you're not in a fight or flight state, then everything calms down. Then the heart rate variability straightens out, and things go back to normal. But so there are other issues here. But people who have pacemakers and so on, if they can go outdoors and stand barefoot on the earth, then they can get grounded. Not an issue. The issue with blood thinners, that's a whole different story. When people are taking blood thinners, what we're doing when we ground people is we're normalizing your blood viscosity, like it would be in nature. One thing about when anybody takes blood thinners, I'm not the perfect person to speak to this. Stephen should be speaking to it, or Howard Elkin, who just finished the hypertension study. These people could speak to this much better than myself, but basically, if you're taking blood thinners, that's because your blood is too thick and it's clotting, and you're not getting, it's the cold fingers, cold toes things. And so they give you a blood thinner, which normalizes, reduces the blood viscosity, makes the blood thin so it can circulate and get in the capillaries. So now, if you are taking a blood thinner, then you'll know, if you read the information on your script, that you're not supposed to eat spinach and greens and any kind of live healthy food, because you're not doing that in the first place. That's what caused your problem. So now you can't go start eating healthy just because you've got this condition, because now you're on a blood thinner. The blood thinner is doing it for you. you don't have to worry about eating healthy, I guess. I gotta be careful here. I don't want to get myself in trouble. This is a very serious thing. If you are on blood thinners, talk to your cardiologist and tell him what you're doing. Find the blood viscosity study that Gaetan and Stephen did. There's articles and references in the book talking about it. If needed, we'll get you in touch with the cardiologist. I mean, whatever you need to do, we will try to help you get the information you need if you're on any of these meds. But see, here's basically, the reason you're on blood thinners is because your blood is charged, meaning you don't have enough electrons in your body. So the red blood cells are sharing electrons. Red blood cells are electrical. They have an electrical surface charge. And it's what we call negative. I don't want to get into the semantics of it, but basically, when these red blood cells are at Earth potential, or when your body's grounded, the Earth is probably minus or negative 15 millivolts or something like that. Negative, meaning abundance of electrons that are free to move and do work. That's what grounding's about. So now, when you ground the body, the red blood cells, before they look like this, but after about 30 minutes, all of a sudden, the electrical surface charge on the red blood cells increases to the exact electrical potential of the Earth. Now they're more negatively charged, and like little negative magnets, when you push them together, they push each other apart. They repel each other. So now the blood cannot stick together. Now it's thin, like Stephen says, red wine. Now it can get into the capillaries, oxygenate the tissue, the immune system, and clean up everything in the immune system, and manage the inflammation, all that kind of stuff. So this is what happens in nature with electrical ground. Now, so what they're doing with the blood thinners, I'm not exactly sure. It's different with different ones, but what they're trying to do is accomplish the same thing. They're trying to thin the blood so that it can get in and out of the capillaries, so it can get through the heart, through the veins, so, I mean, your blood circulates in the body completely once every minute. There's a lot going on inside your body, and there's a lot of energy and a lot of pressure. I mean, if you cut an artery, I mean, it would squirt all the way across the room. So this is a very, it's, so to answer your question, I tried to give a little context of what may be contributing to it. Get grounded. If you're going, get grounded a little bit at a time and start doing your barefoot. Get a unimat, put your feet on it, put one in your chair that you're in, sit in it, and notice the changes. And if you are on blood thinners, you go to your doctor every so often, routinely, and they measure your INR, and if it's out of whack, then they'll reduce. They'll give you a decision. You either do more of what you're doing, or we can reduce the meds. But if you're not going to keep doing what you're doing, then we don't dare reduce the meds. So this is a personal choice. But your doctor will manage your INR and manage your blood thinners based on your blood. So any type of a med that is be careful because the body grounding returns the body to normal, returns the immune system to normal. The body, it's a healing machine. It only knows one thing: to return to normal. You get up in the morning, you go and fight the bear, you do all these things, you wear it out, you go to bed at night, and it recovers and it repairs itself. And then you can get up in the morning and do it again. And as long as you eat some decent food, do some exercise, get some water, and stay grounded, health is natural. Health is your most natural state. Illness or sickness or unhealth is very unnatural. It's not normal. I mean, nature doesn't allow that, never did allow that. Did I answer that?
Yes, you did. Let's talk for a second about pets. Right now it's summertime, all our pets are outside, but coming into the winter months, we get so many questions, people wanting to know, how can they ground their pets, that are inside with them all day? What do you recommend?
Okay. Having just adopted a new pet,
Puppy.
a puppy, and dealing with that issue. But I've been around animals my whole life. I've always had animals, dogs and horses and all that. the veterinary business, you know, my uncle or a relative, you know, used to own the wholesale veterinary supply for the state of Montana. And so I kind of grew up exposed to a little bit of that, and so I know a lot about animal husbandry and health. And and that's a story all by itself. That would take an hour to tell all of them stories about animals and grounding and so on. But anyhow, the number one, if you put any kind of a mat in your home, whether it's a unimat, and just put it on the floor, the cats automatically go to it the quickest, I think. The dogs are more social. They kind of like to stay with their owner and might move around with them. But giving them time to go be by themselves, they go and lay on the mats. They don't have to be told to lay on the mats. You just throw it in the corner on the floor. They will find it, and they automatically start laying on it. The product that we have in existence right now that's probably been the number one dog bed seller or pet seller has been our throw, that blanket. It's 40 inches by 72 inches or something like that. And it's really a throw that you put on your shoulders while you're watching TV or on the couch or whatever, or you can sleep under it or sleep on it. But it ends up primarily being a dog bed for most people because the dogs, you can't keep the dogs away from it. So anyhow, the only thing you can do right now is you have to find a piece of bare concrete. Dogs aren't afraid of, they don't mind sleeping on concrete. They love the cold, actually. Not outdoors, I'm talking about indoors in the winter, because I assume we're talking winter months here. So I don't have all the answers, but having them sleep on a puffy, comfortable bag of foam or fiber that's full of static electricity, and their hair is full of static electricity, because they're chronically charged, just like their blood would look just like the blood that we showed on these pictures. And then they have to end up going to the vet. Well, the veterinarian, most people will spend more money going to a vet than they will on their own health issues. And so it's a big deal. So anyhow, we have come up with a line of pet beds. I wish I had one to show you tonight. I don't. I do, but it's too big to show you. But anyhow, it's the same material that's on the mattress cover. It's the thin carbon, and you take a piece of foam or the inserts that go inside the mattress cover. So anyhow, the material covers the entire size of the bed, and water falls off the sides and goes down to the bottom, and then it's zipped around the bottom. So the bed is 100% grounded. The coil cord or the cord goes underneath into the zipper, so they're not exposed to the top of the bed and so on. So you don't have to do anything except put it on the floor. The dogs will go find it. They'll start sniffing around. Automatically, they'll start laying on it. And then if they have any kind of the inflammation-related health disorders that we've been talking about, you will see a significant improvement, especially with the arthritises and just the overall health of the dog. They're going to look better, they feel better, they're going to have more energy, they're going to be calmer, they're just going to calm down because they're grounded and they are not charged with static electricity and all the craziness. So I'm not sure, I start running off, start answering these questions, but I don't know what to do other than what we've talked about earlier. Get them outdoors at least a half hour, 3 or 4 times a day. That'll help. If you have a basement that's got bare concrete, that's great. Put them down there. They won't stay there, but you have to use your own mind to find out what's in your environment. The garage, many dogs sleep in the garage. The garages, the floors are grounded. And and here's a grounded puppy.
He's using one of our body bands there.
Yep. Yeah, we have all kinds of, we have at least 1,000 pet stories about how people have grounded their pets with patches, with throws, with
universal mats.
Universal mats and so on. Universal mat is the simplest, easiest thing to do. And if you're worried about the dog chewing up, whatever, just get some duct tape and tape it to the floor. Do whatever you got to do because you can't afford not to.
Yeah. Our products, a lot of people ask what exactly comes in a product kit. I know we had mentioned the ground rod before, which does not come in our kits, but we do have it available separately. So can you just briefly mention what to expect when you get a kit?
Well, basically, I don't have it in front of me here, but maybe there's a slide coming.
Yep.
Yeah, basically what you get is you get the mattress cover, and it has straps, and depending on the size of your bed, you just get the size you need, and you just open it up, put it on your bed. The straps go underneath your mattress to hold it in place, and it gives easily and moves nicely. And I have to say one thing really nice about this is this new mat, you can just wipe it down. You're not going to have the mites and the dust and a lot of the issues that go with conventional mattresses. And a lot of people sleep directly on it because it's cool, and because of the carbon, which is, you know, a metal conductive, it will wick away heat, so it's going to keep your body temperature down. So anyhow, but you get the mat, you put it on the bed. Then you get a cord, and it's usually a 15-foot coil cord. And at the head of the mattress pad, there's a snap. You just snap that onto the mattress cover underneath, and then you take the safety adapter, and first of all, you take the electrical outlet tester and you plug it in, and what it's telling you is that you have a working ground. If you do not have a ground, the lights will, if you have two orange lights, that means you have you have an electrical ground. If the red light comes on, it means there is no ground, or your outlet is miswired and the ground is not available. So the first thing you do is you test that. Once that's done, take that out and put it in a drawer, and you don't need it unless you're going to move the product to a different outlet or something. So then you put the cube, the adapter, safety adapter, into the outlet, and you can plug two products in at one time. What we're showing here is the pillow cover. So it's got a zipper, and so it's like a regular pillow cover. So you open it, unzip it, put your pillow inside of it, and zip it back up, connect it with the cord, same thing, and put your pillowcase over the top of it, put it on your bed and go to sleep. It's heavenly. So you get a coil cord, you get an outlet checker, you get a safety adapter, and you get the grounding device, the grounding mechanism, the grounding product.
And it's okay to use more than one product at the same time, right? I know some people ask, can I use a mattress cover with a pillow, or
Yes.
a universal mat with a pillow? Yes.
What you want to do is, if in the average home, if you're going to ground the bed, you'll either use a patch or a pillow, sometimes occasionally with it. So that's why we have two outlets on the adapter. And then the adapter is to make sure you have a good solid connection. And so you can plug it, you can put in a power strip and put in 2 or 3 adapters and put in 2 pillows and patches and whatever you need, as long as you verify that you have ground. And so yeah, what you do not want to do, and this is protected, so it's not really an issue. I don't even need to mention it, but you don't want to have a ground rod out your window and connect it to your patch and put it on your body, and then be sleeping on a ground plane that is connected to the electrical ground. Because outdoors, those grounds are several feet apart maybe. And so there's a difference in electrical potential between where the outdoor ground rod for the electrical is and the ground rod, the temporary ground rod. There's no harm. It's just electrically, you're not supposed to do that because you'll get a ground circuit. See, one thing you need to know about all these ground products is they are connected they are tapped into the electrical ground, meaning they're connected to the electrical ground, which is going throughout your home and to the earth. So they are not connected to a circuit. There is no circuit. There can be no electrical current flow. There has to be a circuit. That means that the electricity has to be able to go somewhere. It has to have a path back to the ground or to the, however you want to put it. It has to have a path back to where it came. In this case, it's the transformer up on your pole and so on. But so, yeah, we have built safety into all of this, but a lot of the stuff that you might hear out there, the people are concerned, I'm going to get shocked. You're not going to get shocked. The only shock you will ever get is if you have static electricity on you and you touch the mattress. We put a resistor in to slow it down, but sometimes you will feel the little static electricity. But that's charge going to the earth. It's not charge coming from the earth to you. So I hope I explained that well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and on that note, we do get questions of whether or not the earthing products will still work when the power goes out. People who are plugged into an outlet.
Yeah, the earth works 24/7. Ground rod's connected to it. It's going to work 24/7. The electrical ground wire is energized at earth potential 24/7. You do not have to unplug anything, turn it off, do anything. It's working the day. That's what the grounding is all about with the bed. It's connected to the earth instantly. You never have to do anything except lay down, go to sleep. No work, no thought. Don't do anything. Just go to bed, enjoy yourself.
Okay. We do have a question here regarding autism, and you had mentioned it earlier tonight. Could you speak a little bit more on what you've seen with children who are grounded that have been diagnosed with autism?
Yes, we have a study that was done by a group of families with autistic children, and it is in the Earthing book, a summary of it. Mm-hmm. And I think you can have access to the full study, anybody that wants it, at the Earthing Institute, or we can certainly make it available to them. Autism is, first of all, I don't want to get into the craziness of autism, but basically autism is an inflammation-related health disorder. It's no different than any other health disorder we're talking about tonight. What happened is a cytokine storm, or these kids never touch the earth, they're never grounded. Oftentimes, especially boys, they're more prevalent to have autism. Well, if you've ever seen young boys, I mean, they sit there and they're just totally energized. They'll sit there and jump up and down for an hour, where girls are more calm. But anyhow, they're creating inflammation in their bodies. Just living, mm-hmm. We have metabolism, we have all of the stuff that's in our environment that is challenging our immune system. But when we, let's say, for instance, I don't want to, this is not, I don't want to get into the shots, but let's say, for instance, today, when I was raising my kids, they had all the shots. They had measles, mumps, rubella, and so on. And so they would go in and get one shot, and then 6 weeks later, they would go in and get another shot, and so on and so on. And over the years, that changed. Now you get 30 shots all at one time. And so now the reason they're giving these children these shots is because they're trying to inoculate them from these diseases. But what they're doing is they're training the immune system to recognize these, and if they show up, to reduce them, for neutrophils to go over and attack them and oxidize them and rip the electrons and destroy them. So if you are not grounded and you get these shots, so the immune system has this massive task all at one time. I'm not a doctor, this is free information. I'm not giving advice. I'm going to tell you 22 years of experience here and what I have observed. And some, so anyhow, they get all these shots. So here's a massive assault on the immune system. So the immune system is in there looking at it, recognizing it, and reducing it. Reducing these dead bacteria that is injected into the body, viruses and so on. So in the process of doing that, if the body does not have enough redox potential or enough free electrons, enough ground to reduce those excess radicals, then they're going to damage adjacent tissue, the collateral damage from the reactive oxygen that is released when a neutrophil reduces a virus or pathogen. Those excess radicals, they call them reactive oxygen, and they're reactive. The word reactive means that they are electrically charged. These molecules are hot. They have enough, they can steal an electron from a healthy cell, and it happens in nanoseconds. You don't build up free radicals. They don't last but a few nanoseconds. But what they do when they attack the adjacent cell, then they get a message, the immune system gets a message, there's damage, so it has to send another neutrophil to clean up that damage. And if there's not enough free electrons to reduce the radicals left over from it, then it damages more cell. And this is what inflammation is. This is the very essence of what inflammation is. It's the body's on fire. You have started a slow going, growing fire. You are oxidizing healthy tissue. You are damaging, you are burning up tissue. So again, cowboy logic. And I can tell you a bunch of stories about autism, but anyhow, what's happening here is these children are experiencing, like a cytokine storm in the lungs when you have, but they're having a cytokine storm or an immune flare, in the brainstem or wherever. And if these kids don't get grounded or don't get some relief in some way, not all kids get, but it's getting out of hand. I mean, we are now 1 in 10 kids are on the spectrum. This is all related to some of these issues. Something in our environment is doing this. This is not natural. This does not occur in the animal world. Something we are doing, something is challenging these children's immune system and starting a fire, and it's oxidizing healthy tissue, and it's doing damage. And they wake up the next day and they aren't the same. The brain is no longer functioning normally. And then it can get worse. But in many cases, I remember my daughter was living in Phoenix, Arizona. And they bought a new house, and she had made a few friends. And one of her friends was a lady down the street a couple blocks, and they would walk together, and she had an autistic child. And so Kristen was telling her about grounding. And so the lady asked, well, do you think grounding would help my child? And she said, I don't have a clue, but I'll get you anything. I've got lots of stuff. Let me give it to you and let's see what happens. And so 3 weeks later, the child started getting better and better and better. And all of a sudden, the child was so well that it wasn't an issue anymore. But the mother couldn't explain it, didn't know how to share it. So she lived in her own little world here. She's grateful that she had these benefits. On the other hand, we have children. We have grounded lots and lots of autistic children. And it's not, we're not selling selling to ground for. We're not doing it. What we're doing is, this is an inflammation-related health. Earthing, grounding is about inflammation, nothing else. Autism is one of those health disorders that is a byproduct of having chronic or an inflammative flare in the body. So just make sure that we're straight on that. So, but anyhow, some children are so far advanced, the autism the damage is so advanced and not reversible, the body can't repair. And that's really a challenge. And I really have a lot of empathy, and I would like to scream mind-bending, and yet nobody talks about it. There's a handful of people that do have their blogs and do have their things, and that's all good. And they're doing the best they can, given the circumstances. But I talked to a doctor one time, and there's no insurance codes. What can the medical community do for an autistic child? Nothing, except bill you for talking to them about this vitamin or that food or this or whatever. And the people who cater to this community, a lot of them are not people I would want to associate with, but I mean, they're preying on these people. I shouldn't say a lot of these things, but I can't help it. This is 22 years of experience. I have seen miracles with autism and grounding. I have seen miracles in grounding and maintaining, it's like, I use the term once in a while. We all have health insurance, but try to use it. So the issue of today is health assurance. You have to do the things that are going to assure your health. You have to learn what those things are. We know that good food and these inflammation-related health disorders are from one thing and one thing only: a compromised immune system. We know that the one thing that is compromising the immune system is loss of ground. We've lost our ground. We lost our protection, our electrical ground protection. So anyhow, if for anyone who has autism, it's a challenging situation because these kids are very sensitive. It's very difficult for them to manage change or to do anything different sometimes. But if you can, get them grounded, get them outdoors, get the shoes off them, keep the shoes off of them forever. They don't need to wear shoes in the house. If they're outdoors, wear shoes if they're going downtown or there's glass in the street or the tar is too hot to walk in. But other than that, these kids whose health is very compromised, lose the shoes. Lose anything that generates a lot of static electricity. And just work with them and get them used to it. And we have tons of stories. I mean, some of them are hilarious. How these, with the zero gravity chairs when we were having the Chopra conferences, some of these kids, we'd set them in a chair and they'd just be different human beings. And just down, it's going to put the fire out in their bodies. They don't sleep well. They have all the health disorders that everybody else does. Their bodies are on fire. You have to put the fire out. And that's the best I can do.
Well, thank you, Clint. I think we're a little, so I'll hand it over to you, Kylie.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Clint, and thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us today. And thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope this was helpful, and we hope that everyone was able to learn something new or valuable about grounding. If you have a burning or urgent question we have not yet addressed, I know there were a ton of questions we had today. Please feel free to send it over to help@earthing.com. You can also chat with our customer service support team at earthing.com. You can also call us at 888-223-8454. One more time, that number is 888. Last but not least, check out our YouTube channel for tons of helpful information. It's a really great resource. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and have a great night. Oh, yeah, also the Earthing movie. That's also a really great resource.
You can find the link to that on our website as well.
Right. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Namaste.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Good night.